Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this vid is going to be a guide on my first Necropolis path. I did the completion by going from the Titania path into the Guardian. That's the Tranquillise into the Autoblock. I didn't record any of it and I didn't live stream it, so this is just going to be a discussion one. I will try and find links to other YouTubers who have done the fights that I'm going to be talking about just to link to them so you got something to watch if you want to. But I hope it's helpful regardless. So the team I went for was Kate Bishop, Carl, Gore, Bishop, and Chavez. So Kate is obviously my main clearer, as you can see by the number of fights she's going to be taking. I ended up using her for 12 out of the 14 path fights. When I was planning, I wrote down Kate and I looked through what fights she could do. And I just wrote Kate, and I wrote Kate again and again and again because it turns out she can do a hell of a lot. Because Kate can take so much, and I feel pretty comfortable with her, it left me with space jumping to the end of the team. It left me with space for a Chavez synergy. Chavez is a rank 3 6-star, not used at all in this. She's just there so that I can stack 3 trick arrows instead of 2. It's a really large difference. If you can't afford the Chavez synergy, Kate will do just great. She will be fine. You just lose out on a lot of damage. Some of these solos wouldn't have been solos if not for that synergy. Absorbing Man is for a couple of those tricky cosmics. He works very well for Aarkus and very well for Airwalker if you need a backup. I used Kate, she can work for that, but Abs is there as a backup if needed. And then Abs is there as a backup for Nova as well. Gore is only really there for one fight. He's there for Guardian. There's an auto block, and that is very annoying. Gore has his undermine. Mine's rank 2 Sig 47 star, so he works very well. And finally, you might be wondering why Bishop. My plan was that because Bishop persists his power meter between fights, I could end a fight with him at like just below 3 bars of power. And then when I get to the final stage of Grandmaster, I could go in, he's already at 2.9 bars of power, I go straight to Special 3, and I use it without having to worry about the reverse controls. Just in case you're starting to get a little bit impressed and think about taking him yourself, it doesn't work. Unfortunately, the fight treats it as the start of a new phase, and at the start of a new phase, both champions' power are reduced to 0. So, yeah, that was a hell of a lot of dead weight. With that knowledge, I would have gone with someone like Dragon Man or Wiccan, who is reverse controls immune or has power gain to get to a special 3 pretty easily. This guide is going to pretty much assume that you know how to play Kate. I'm going to go through which arrows to use with her, but I'm not really going to go into a really specific, step by step, loads of tips, anything like that. Otherwise this is going to end up being an hour-long video. I will, however, leave a link to my own guide. I have done one in the past, which can help you out in case you don't know how to use her. I'll also link to some of MSD's content. He's done a ton with Kate. Karate might use Kate a lot in his stream, so I'll link that as well. And literally today, Vega has put out a solo of Titania, so that'll have the rotation there, how to use her, and some examples. But just as like a generic Kate rotation, I will go for the fragilities first, then I'll go for cold snaps. I want to get my damage going as soon as possible. It's technically more efficient to go for like caltrops first and then fragility because the dialed in passives increase your damage more, but I want to start the cold snap damage ticking as soon as possible. So I'll go for fragilities, then cold snaps, then I'll go for caltrops. And at this point, it depends how long's left in the fight. If there's quite a lot, I'll rush up to Special 3 and I'll go for that. That'll give me a Cruelty passive, which means that I can increase my critical cold snaps by even more. Then I'll go back and chuck some more cold snaps on, chuck some more fragilities on. Again, it depends how long's left in the fight. If there's not that long left, I'll probably rotate back around to fragility to apply the dialed in passive to them. And then I'll apply some more cold snaps to apply the increased fragility and the increased cold snap damage to them. So, the path overview. We're going to be starting off on this Tranquillise one. So, the trap node here is that whenever you well-timed block, you get a 12-second, 25% potency Tranquillise. That stops your debuffs applying. It's mostly okay for Kate, but you do want to watch out when you're trying to apply your Fragility or your Tranquillise. Kate's playstyle doesn't really rely on her well-timed blocking very often as well, so there is that. So to start with, we'll go through Titania. So her specific node is when you dash back, it gives you a chicken timer. This is 1 second, it pauses Haymaker, and then if you dash back again during it, it'll apply 5 weakness debuffs. That means that she'll get Haymaker back quicker, she'll get more Furies. It's overall not a good thing. So the way we're going to counter that is by applying our Tranquillise arrow. Remember that you don't want to parry, so to not fail your Tranquillise debuff itself. So we're going to try and get her into the corner. We're going to try and stack up 2 of the Tranquilizers, make sure they're paused, make sure they're refreshed, and then cycle through our arrows, and then we're going to go to our normal rotation of Fragilities, and then Cold Snaps, and then Caltrops. Her Haymaker can be really annoying, so we're going to really watch out for that. You're going to try not to make her dash or throw a heavy. If you can get into a rhythm where you're pushing her back into the corner, knocking her down, Kate's pseudo taunt can really help with the rhythm. It means you can avoid the Haymaker by her just throwing specials over and over again, pausing your arrows, and just ticking her down. The solo is definitely possible here, but if you're looking for a moment to begin the run and you can't seem to get the solo, I'd advise waiting until you get the run where you don't really feel like you're dying from a silly mistake. You feel like you've got the rhythm of the fight, you're feeling confident, and you've got a good chunk off. You don't need to start with a solo. If you can, push for it, but don't stress because you can't get the solo. I did get the solo in this fight, so I had 0 revives on this one. So next up for Aarkus, I used Absorbing Man. His node is that getting armor broken gives him power. It's kind of a hope that he doesn't use Special 3 fight. You do have to bait pretty early and just hope that he throws it. If you use a Special 3, you are power locked as well for 6 seconds, but it doesn't really affect this fight. I just cycled SB2s. And Absorbing Man can reduce power gain while he holds block, so that can help. It's not anything to reverse or really slow it down much more than just buying you a bit of time, but it is very nice. I used the Magma pre-fight to block Special 2s and hopefully take less damage. In theory, I think you could use Kate for this with Tranquillise and not worry about the armor break. However, the power gain is still an issue, and though her pseudo taunt will help, I don't know if it will be enough. And we used 1 revive on this fight. Next up, Omega Sentinel. So she has 3 phases. In her first phase, Autoblock can parry. In her second, if you crit her, she gets an extra armor. And in her third, she goes armor break immune. With Kate, if you put Tranquillise up first, you don't need to worry about anything in this fight. She can't parry you, she can't apply Incinerates, you're all fine. The one thing I will say is don't use Gore. It can look like a promising fight, but his Undermine will stop the auto block, but the Incinerate will still apply. Also, he doesn't deal too well with the Tranquillise because you want to be parrying a lot, so yeah, just one to avoid there. Not including the death with Gore because it was literally a few combos. I used 1 revive with Kate on this fight. Next up, Airwalker. His node is that he gets his Galactus buff every 15 seconds unless he's knocked down. That'll make him unstoppable, give him a ton of regen, and just make him all around really annoying to deal with. Kate really works well for this. If you go for Tranquillise first, you don't get the armor breaks or those debuffs on you that make you take damage. I can't remember what they're called right now. And her knockdown intensive playstyle just controls the node so well. You're either heavying or you're special 1 spamming. So sometimes in Kate fights, I do go to Special 3. Here, I would just ignore it. I would switch arrows from Cold Snap to Caltrops at the end and just spam that. The reason I wouldn't stick with Cold Snap is if you miss a perfect release, it can replace it with a weaker Cold Snap. So I would just stick with Caltrops. You will get to a point where you're doing enough damage so that even if he does get Power of Galactus, you'll be out damaging it, so you don't need to quit out. However, this is a fight that you really want to get a good first run on. If you die to Airwalker, he gains a persistent charge, which increases his power gain, and that just makes him really difficult to deal with. So if you don't get a good run, I would advise force closing the game, going back in, trying again. I cannot stress how important it is to get a good run against Airwalker. I've seen people quit out because he's just got so difficult. If you have a decently ranked Chavez, that is actually perfect as backup. Mine's only a 6-star, like I said, so not for me. But because Chavez reduces and then reverses power gain, Airwalker actually gets easier when he's ramped up. So if you have a ranked Chavez and you bring her along, and then you die to Airwalker with Kate once or twice, you can bring in Chavez and you can literally just heavy spam him. He won't get to a bar of power. You'll be knocking him down. It's a long fight. It's a boring fight, but it works. And as a side note, Chavez works really well for Aarkus, I have heard. So she can even work as a replacement for Abs if you wanted to do so or if you didn't have him. Next up is Captain Britain. So her node is that whenever she purifies a debuff from you, she will reverse your controls. The way she does that is from her specials. And the way she applies debuffs is when you crit her. So you'll hit her with a combo, she'll apply debuffs to you, she'll throw a special, and then your controls will be reversed. With Kate, you will have to deal with this a little bit. However, that's only at the start of the fight when you're ramping up your Tranquillise. You'll get a couple specials off, you'll stop the debuffs applying in the first place, and then it's just a normal big Captain Britain. I would really advise working out how to dex her specials. They can be a little bit difficult when rooted. The special 2 is really tough, so I'd try and avoid that. The special 1 is not too bad. Just, I would say, dex the second hit of the special a little sooner than you probably think is necessary. I will say, though I didn't experience it myself, I've heard that some people very occasionally had debuff sneak through the Tranquillise. I don't know how that would happen. There's probably some math I'm missing if that is the case. However, like I said, I didn't see it myself, but it's just something to watch out for in case this is a thing. But yeah, this was another solo for me, so it went well. Next up is Wiccan. So his node is that if you're on equal bars of power for too long, he'll steal your power. Kate is fine for this. You are constantly switching between bars of power, so you're never within that range for too long. However, I will say that you do really want Despair 3 out of 3, and ideally the Chavez synergy. Wiccan heals back a ton, and if you're not reducing that, it's going to be a really tough fight. I don't know what level of Despair is needed or whether the Chavez synergy is needed 100%, as in, I don't know if it's impossible to do that without the two. But whatever level of Despair you have, figure out if it's enough debuffs to reduce healing by 100%. If not, he's just going to be healing back all of your energy damage. You want to be starting with your Tranquillise first. That will stop his Neutralise applying. If you wanted to be risky and heal up, you could not apply the Tranquillise maybe at first, heal up a little bit and then carry on, but you really want to be able to dex. You don't want incinerates being put on you every so often. And this was a solo for me. Next up is Psychoman. So his node gives you challenges at random to do either a block, a heavy, or a special. If you don't do the challenge, you'll take 15% direct damage, and that's over your max health, and it will remove any buffs on you. Doesn't really affect Kate, doesn't have any buffs besides dex. Fairly often in the fight, those challenges will line up with whatever mode he's in at that time, and doing the challenge in that mode will probably concuss you. It'll put a concussion on you, maybe heal block, maybe a power lock if it fails something. This is quite an annoying fight, I will not lie. You're going to want to try and time it so that you're not doing the challenge when you're in that mode. So if heavy comes up, you're gonna want to push to the next bar of power for your next bar of power. That changes his mode to the next one, and then you'll be able to heavy and complete the challenge. However, sometimes to avoid losing health, you're going to have to do it in that challenge, in which case you'll get the concussion, and it's pretty annoying. It can be hard to get your fragilities, your cold snaps up, because if he's in his special mode, it's going to reduce the ability accuracy of your trick arrow. And I would go fragilities into cold snaps personally, and then just keep them up. I'd probably stick in cold snap after that. There's not much point cycling. Unless things go really well, you probably haven't got that far before the fight is, in the root stages and it's coming to the end, so it's a tough one. It can be quite difficult to get going. You've got to stick with it. You just keep on trying. Once you get some cold snaps up, once you get into the rhythm of the fight, it's a lot better, and he does start going down fairly fast. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty tricky one. I know a lot of people have Shuri, and Shuri is just perfect for this fight, being immune to ability accuracy reduction. And this fight took me 2 revives with Kate. So we're over to the Autoblock path now. This means that whenever we end a combo with a medium or a light, the next combo, if we end with the same, is got a 100% chance to be auto-blocked. This is something to watch out for. Kate doesn't often end her combos, but with a couple of the fights here, she will be. So just bear it in mind. I usually try not to end combos when I was doing these fights, just so that I didn't have to remember which one I was needing to end with. However, if I did end with a medium, I would then make sure to end with a light before I went back to not ending combos in a medium or a light, if that makes sense. Because if I had a light on permanently, I'm more likely to end with a medium by muscle memory, so then it won't get auto-blocked, and then I'll remember, and then I'll go back to a light. I hope that makes sense. It did in my head. So starting off with Guardian, he gains 10% power when you hit into his block, and every so often he'll gain armor passives. The idea with Gore is to keep your undermine up. Your Gore does need to be awakened if you're going to be using him. Because he's only there for one fight, alternatives are Adam. Karate Mike had a great run with him. I think Venom would work if you heavy attack, take away his bleed resistance with the armor break, and then just go a bit crazy. I'm sure Null would work. Vox seems like a great option if you have him. And Odin probably just destroys him. But my rotation with Gore was to keep up the undermine as much as possible, so I'd be ending in lights, and then when I get a chance, medium, that will apply a lot of debuffs. The ending in lights gives you your buffs, which let you apply the debuffs, so it works quite well in that sense. As for specials, I went SB2s for the Fury, making sure that I had debuffs up when that happens, because you get an extra Fury for each unique debuff you have on them. And then I'd make sure to use my SB1 to pause my buffs and refresh my Furies. Then when possible, when Guardian was letting me, I'd try and get back to another special 2 to refresh my Furies again and add 4 more. I ended up getting up to like 20 Furies. I was hitting like 18, 20k mediums, stacking on debuffs. Yeah, it's a really nice rotation. The issue with Guardian is that, or the issue I had with Guardian is I got hit by his special 2 about 4 times in a row, 30 seconds into the fight. He just kept on ending up throwing it when I was dashing back directly into me before I could dex, and it really, really sucked. So this fight could definitely have been like a 2 or 3 revive fight. Next up is Valk, and she was a really tough one for me. I had quite a lot of issues with her. I just found it hard to get into a rotation. So her node means that she gains extra combo whenever she gains a pierce passive, and whenever either champion hits into the other's block, she gains a pierce passive. She also doesn't lose power when she throws a special if she doesn't have one of those passives, so you can see how it starts to get quite complicated. The general idea is hit her into block, you don't really want to take a hit into your block, and give her the pierce passive, bait the specials, and then repeat. There's kind of 2 ways you can do it. Either bait the special 1 or the special 2. I guess you could also just bait a mixture, but you'll have a preference and figure out which one works better for you. So you can either bait the special 1, in which case the fight's a little bit faster, you can punish it very easily, and then you can try and find another opportunity to hit her block. Or you can bait the special 2, which will give her a passive Fury, and the pierce passives are paused during this Fury. So it's a lot better for your tempo after that. The issue is you can't punish the special 2, so it makes keeping up your trick arrows a little bit more difficult, and the tempo of the fight is a little bit more difficult. But yeah, you've just got to figure out which one works better for you. I baited the special 1 because it felt like hitting her afterwards and carrying on felt a little bit better, but when she went to special 2 and paused it, it didn't feel bad either. As for arrows, she's going to purify a lot of your non-damaging debuffs, so I just stuck with Cold Snap the entire fight. You could go for Caltrops if you wanted to, but I didn't. And just remember that Valk is immune to stun debuffs, not passives, so you can still riposte and stun her that way. But yeah, this was about 6 revives for me, and it was a tough one. Next up is Red Guardian. Yeah, it's really a pretty straightforward fight with Kate. He is another one of those 3-phase champs. In his first phase, every attack but heavies reduces his charges. And remember that when he gets to 0 charges, his shield fractures. The second is that his cooldown is now 8 seconds. And the third is that each champion gains a 4-second unblockable passive every 12 seconds. The idea with this fight is that you're going to be tranquilizing him, so you don't have to worry about anything. However, when you start the fight, you do have to time the first couple of shield fractures right. You want to be specifically throwing the special one when his shield is about to fracture. But like I said, once 2 tranquilizers are up, you're fine. Cycle through the rest of your arrows. This is definitely a soloable fight. I mistimed one of the unblockable passives and I got hit and taken down when he was on about 10%. Next up is Cap Sam. He's pretty simple with Kate as well. Hitting him into block gives you 5 rupture debuffs, so again, trank first. Your true accuracy on your specials will stop his auto block, and apart from that, there's not really much else about him. Bait the special 1 so you don't take a big special 2 on block and it chunks you down. Again, Kate's taunt will really, really help with the flow of the fight. And this was a solo for me. Next up is Dragon Man. So his node is that every 3 crits he goes stun immune. This does mess with Kate a little bit. Not being able to stun means that it's difficult to get your riposte off and take him into the corner. The other thing is that under the hood, riposte can still crit, even though it doesn't, actually do any damage. It means that if you are on 2 charges and he's about to get his 3rd, if you riposte and that is a crit, it won't stun him. He will go stun immune. So you do need to watch out for that. I'd say bait specials pretty early because you don't want him going to special 3. Try and time the special 1 so that it hits your block and applies the debuff to you. That'll be willpower healing, so I probably wouldn't go for a Tranquillise arrow in this matchup, and you don't need Caltrops because there's no point, he's bleed immune. Try and bait the special 2 when he has the power gain charge, that converts it into a Fury. And yeah, you're just going to try and not let him go red. This was 1 revive for me because I think he did go red at one point. But yeah, it's a potentially soloable fight. Next up is Cap Infinity War. This one's pretty simple. Again, with Kate, it turns out this trank debuff is just insane utility. Honestly, I'm well aware of how many times I'm saying trank first. But yeah, it's super valuable. And I love that we have some content where it's showcasing its use. So Cap's node is that he cycles through his SIG every so often. Like the Purification in skill or the Petrify from Tech and the Armor Break from Cosmic kind of thing. And also, if he gets to 5 kinetic potential and you hit him, he'll apply a concussion debuff to you. Again, that means we go for the trank and we're all good. The one thing that you need to watch out for really is don't apply one of your Fragility or Tranquillise in skill mode because he'll Purify. Just hold off, wait for him to cycle to the next and then apply them then. He doesn't go back around and Purify them if you're worried about that. Like if he's in Mutant, you apply a debuff, then he goes to skill. He won't Purify it then. And this is another soloable fight with Kate. It took me 1 revive. The last path fight is Nova. The node is that if you're close to him for 6 seconds, you get power burned. Probably expect this to happen once or twice. It's difficult to watch everything in the fight with Kate as it is. And when you can't be close to him for 6 seconds, the odds are you'll get caught at some point. However, Kate's playstyle does do a pretty good job of making sure you're not always staying close. So I found that while not paying loads of attention to it, I didn't get caught with it very often. I think I got caught by it once. Absorbing Man worked great as a backup when I died with Kate a couple of times and just needed to finish off the last 30% or so. And the strategy I went for with that was just special 1 spam. I started with going for special 3s, but it felt like I just wasn't getting any tempo. The issue with special 1 spam against Nova with Absorbing Man is that because he will have unblockable attacks, the attack of the special itself is really reduced, so you're not going to be doing basically any damage with that. However, what it does do is firstly ramps up Nova a ton, so he gets unblockable buffs which last no time at all with Carl because he reduces the duration of unblockables. But that feeds your Mystic Dispersion. It means you can throw off a lot of special ones, and then you'll get a lot of morph charges. It also means that you can focus on your basics doing a ton of the attack. Because you're spamming so many specials and using strikers, the necro charges don't go down very quickly. It means you have quite a lot of time to just throw really big basic combos and take him down that way. It's a bit of a slower fight, but it works, and he worked really well for that last section. But yeah, that's the path. I'm not going to really go into a big Grandmaster guide because I've only faced him once, and there will be better ones coming out, or if they're not already out by now. If I do see some, I'll link them in the description as well. But yeah, this was always meant to be more of a path guide. I'm going to try and do one for every path that I do. I'm not sure when my next one is even planned. I need to grind more revives and get prepared for it. But let me know if these are helpful, because if they are, then I can definitely do them again. I'm also planning on maybe streaming the next one. Don't take that as a promise. I'm not really sure if I want to just yet, but I'll try and record more gameplay as well so that I can link to my own instead of other people's as well. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.